Hi, my name is Johnny and I teach live event production. Today we're going to be looking at a software called Reaper. And this is an audio software and it is free, although you can buy a license, but it's available on a Mac, it's available on PC. And I'm going to encourage my students to use this year a lot to really refine their skills, especially those who want to do live sound. We can use this piece of software to practice your mixing skills. So what I'm going to do, we're going to delve straight into it. And there's a couple of things I've done in Reaper to kind of help my students. So I'm just going to load it. And this pop-up window comes up. And if we stay on it, we'll see that the buy me countdown happens. And I'm going to click on still evaluating. So license is available, but those who want to use it for free, especially for educational purposes, we can do that. So here I actually have the template loaded, but yours may look like this, blank. And if yours looks like that, that's fine. But what I've actually gone and done is made a template that sort of resembles the X32. Now I'm using this template as an X32 because where I teach, or here at Confetti, the equipment that's available to the students is an X32. The digital console, and I've tried to make this Reaper template resemble that as much as possible, just so there's some familiarity with what's going on when they're practicing in Reaper and then when they transfer some of that knowledge over to the X32. But it could work for any mixing desk. So we're going to double click on the X32 V1, so that's just a version 1 of this template that I've made. And what it's going to give you is 32 audio channels. So we can see that if I scroll on the arrange page, I've got 32 audio channels. And if I click over to my mixer, which is down here, where I can see all the faders. Again, this is just showing us the 32 channels that we've got in the arrange page. But if we go right to the end, I've also included 4 return effects channels. Now, if I just increase how big that is, you can also see that I've placed on those our effects return channels 4 different effects that we can access and we can use, similar to how the default X32 sort of loads up. And you can also see on each channel I've put some processing on there, and again I've tried to resemble as much as possible when we're on a live mixing desk some of the tools that are available to us on each channel strip. So we've got on there, we've got gain, we've got a low cut, high cut filter, we've got a gate, we've got an EQ, and we've got a compressor. So some of those are just the basic tools. If we go onto our channel strip on an X32, we have some of those processing available. I'm just going to minimize, bring this down a little bit. What I should say, if you don't see the mixer, maybe I should have said this earlier, if you don't see the mixer for any reason, let's say, or you accidentally close it, we can reopen it over here if I click mixer. And another thing, in fact, whilst I'm just on here, whilst I remember, I know we're using the X32 in this context to practice our mixing, but for any reason, if we're using Reaper to record multi-track stems, in this same view tab, the routing matrix is also going to be very useful to us, but right now we don't need it. So we're just going to have mixer so we can see all our faders down here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop some multi-track stems in there. Now I've got a folder of some stems I've got here, and I get my multi-track stems from Cambridge Multitracks. They're free to use as long as we're not putting this back out commercially. We're just using it for practice purposes. And what I've gone and already done, I've gone through and named my audio tracks with a number at the beginning, so that it helps when I click all and I drag and drop. It's going to sequentially put my my audio in order. So I'm just going to drag over and I'm going to go to my first one, my first track, and it's going to say to me, do you want to insert multiple media items on separate tracks or sequentially on a single track? I want it on separate tracks. And it's going to follow my number system. So it's gone from 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down, and it's put it in order, which is perfect. And then I can also see the names of those files here. So I've got kick, I've got snare, I've got rack tom, I've got my overheads, and I've got my hi-hat, and I've got bass, so on and so forth. Now, what I want to show you guys here, I'm not going to be showing you how to mix, but I'm just wanting to show you Reaper and some of the functions that I've got in there. That really best, yes, they resemble what's on the X32, but I want you to really focus more on how can I use my skills outside of the practical, like the actual event space, but still work on my mixing skills. And it's that bit that I want you to apply, not the software we're using. So here, if on each channel, to access those effects that we've got, we can either do it in the arrange window, which is this section here, just above our faders. On each channel, if I click on it and I hit this effects tab, it's going to give me all the parameters that I've got available on that channel strip. Yes, you can add more, yes, you can remove them, but I've put some default ones on there, again, just to kind of make it quicker for you to get to. So I've got gain, I've got low cut EQ, low cut filter, sorry, I've got a gate, I've got an EQ on there, and I've got a compressor. And all of these you can be enabled or disabled from clicking in this box here on the left. So it's super easy to get to, and that is on every channel. Now, by default, they are all disabled, so none of them are active. But if you click on this effects, again, I can do it here. If I click on it, I can enable it, disable it, and use those parameters or use those tools that are on each channel strip. The other thing I want to show you is there is also sends on each channel strip. So here, if I go over to where it says root, they've just named it something different, but root is where we can access our sends. If I click on this, I get another box. Now here, let's say I'm on kick, and if I go down to sends, there are other options, but what we just want to focus on right now is sends. If I click on this drop down menu, I'm able to send some of that audio, all of it, to another channel. But if we scroll down right to the end, I've actually got where we've got the FX returns 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, I know 1 and 2, they're two different reverbs. The third one is a delay, and the last one is like a chorus delay sort of thing. So if I want to send it to a reverb or any of my effects, I can click on it here, and then I get this level here, and I can send either none of it, all of it, some of it. I can also change whether I want it to be post fader, pre fader, all that. I can do that from here. But that's how I set up my sends if I want to send something to a reverb or a delay. And so if I look back down on the mixer, on this bottom right, these pink channels here, I've tried to color code it, again resembles something like on the X32. These are like my masters, so I can send multiple signals on different channels, different levels of how much I want on the reverb, and my master control is over here. So I'm just going to increase this mixer here so I can just see it a little bit more. So we can see that we've set up a send, and we can see that on our channel strip here, and it's telling me that we've sent this track to number 33, which is our FX return 1. And then we can adjust that level here too. It's quite small and minute, but we can see that we've set up a send. We've also got pan available to us here on each channel, mute, and solo. So the layout is a little different. However, the skills, the concept of you building a live mix, applying some of those processing, and just getting used to developing that skill, we can still use within Reaper. And it's a really good piece of software, especially using it for free and just practicing those skills. And just above the mixer section, we have the transport controls. So your play, your stop. Sorry, that was quite loud. But I use this cycle bit quite often. So if I click that circle, and if I just highlight on the timeline, which is just above the audio where all these numbers and these dots are, if I just click, hold, drag, with that loop section on, it will just keep playing that section for me. So when I'm building a mix, something that you can do, which is good practice. So now we've put all our audio in. I might just highlight all my channels. I'm going to click the last one or click the first one, hold shift, click on the end, bring all my faders down. And this is where I might start now to start my mix, start develop. Okay, so I'm going to go through maybe PFL, then I'm going to put some EQ on maybe, then bring in the faders, get a rough balance, start to set up my sends and effects, and work on my mix. But you guys will work that all out when you're having a little play. What I think would be really useful here would be if we just go over some of those channel processings, just to give you an overview of what they look like, how they work, because some of how it's laid out obviously would be different, but the concept is still the same. So let's just click on effects, and I'm going to hit play here, and I'm just going to bring up the kick. I'm going to start with gain. So I'm going to start with gain, because if I was in a live scenario, I want to PFL my instrument, so I want to make sure my gain structure is good. I'm going to enable it. And there I'm aiming for around -18 on my PFL. So I'm just using my adjustment slider there just to get that. And then I'm looking on the right hand side for my average signal after I've attenuated it. So on the left is what's coming in, so that's before, and on the right is after. Then I'm going to go over to my low cuts. And on the X32, this is like the high pass knob you sometimes get. And I might just roll off around like 30 hertz, just anything, just low rumble that I don't really need. Sometimes it's going to muddy up my mix maybe later on. I'm just going to roll that off. Pretty self-explanatory. So here we've got a gate which is a lot like a compressor, but it's acting in the opposite way. We're setting a threshold so that the gate will open when the sound level reaches a certain level, and then we want that gate to let the sound through. But when it's not reaching that threshold, it doesn't let sound through. And we can use that here. And just to demonstrate that, let's just engage it. And if I raise it, let's raise it something ridiculous like there. It's not going to let any sound through. But as the signal starts to trigger or pass the threshold, it will then open that up. But I'm not going to use that on the kick. Then we have EQ. I'm going to enable my EQ here. And we've got 4 bands of EQ. And we can change the type of EQ band we've got here. So on number 1, it's defaulted to a low shelf. So that's just going to treat it anything below or above, or anything below, sorry, on the low shelf. It's just going to attenuate or increase in volume, anything that wherever I set the frequency. But let's disable that. I don't want to use that. Or I could change it to a band. Let's just pull that back up here. And I'm going to get myself almost like a bell curve here. So let's just play the kick. Cool. Or I can also grab the number, boost or attenuate. And then I'm going to go over to my compressor. Sorry, I know I'm whizzing through this, but it's just more of an overview. I'm not doing a mix. I just want to show you guys how simple it is to grab some of these effects and just apply some of the stuff you know or want to practice with. I'm going to pull my threshold down. And then this red meter here is my gain reduction. can change my attack time here. I'm going for a nice punchy kick, so I'm going to raise my attack, make it slower, get a quick release. Now, as I'm compressing and I'm attenuating some of that signal, and I'm getting a lot of gain reduction here, on average, I can see I'm doing it around 2.5, maybe 3 dB. The makeup gain here is this wet signal here, and if I bring this up, it's doing it in dB. So this is how I then reapply my makeup gain. Almost forgot what it's called then. I reapply that there. Now I can, globally, I can A/B what I've done here, back over to the channel, over on this side or down here on the mixer. If I play, before, that's what I've done after. Now, I'm not mixing, I'm just showing you some of the parameters and how they work and how it's going to be useful to you. But this is on every channel strip, so you can apply it on every instrument. That's all, it's already on there. The last thing I want to show you then is we're going to go back to our routing matrix, which is down here. We can see where it says root, which is actually where our sends live. And I'm just going to apply, quite criminally, some of the kick. I'm going to send it to one of our FX returns. I'm going to send it, I've got one set up here, FX return 1, which I know is reverb. And I'm just going to increase the fader. Now that is my send level, and if I scroll over to my FX return there, this is now my master. So if I've sent up sends on different channels and they're all sending different levels to that FX return, I can have overall control over that master here. But that's the basics. I want you now to just have a go with Reaper, practice, develop your skills, and let me know how you get on with your mixes.